Welcome back to Play by Play's show about shows. I'm back here at Chez Josephine Restaurant on Theater Road. I'm joined by the ever-prolific Frank Wildhorn, Broadway composer Frank Wildhorn. Frank, Jekyll and Hyde is on its way back to Broadway, your 8th Broadway show.
So I am told. Yes.
How does it feel to be back on Broadway?
Well, it's great. As you know, I've always said to you, it's like if you're going to play baseball, you want to play in Yankee Stadium. This is Yankee Stadium.
And you're playing Yankee Stadium with two high-powered players. You've got Konstantin Maroulis and Deborah Cox.
Very sexy.
What went into that casting? Why are they right for this revival?
Well, because Jekyll, you know, has been such a gift that does not stop giving to us around the world for so many years, right? And we have these Jeckies and we have the passion of the fans. But it's time to, you know, when the Nederlanders came to me and said, would you like to do a revival? I said, no. I said, I'm too young. I'm still a student. I'm still trying to figure out how to write these things. And when I'm dead, you can do a revival. I said, but I will do a reimagination of it. And so Jeff Calhoun, the director, and I, and Leslie Brickus sat together and we said, all right, how do we do this new? And part of that is in the casting and framing those artists. You know a little bit the way I write. I write for the artists. It's not about me, it's about them. That's my pop background, framing the artists. And with a rock and roll kind of guy like Konstantin and this gorgeous, sexy, sultry R&B diva like Deborah Cox, you want to frame them. So that has implications on how we tell the story, the visuals of the story, and certainly in the music, how the music is done, how it's orchestrated, arranged. And it's a very different thing. It respects and holds true to the things that people love about Jekyll and Hyde, but yet it's a very new, reimagined production.
It's been done all around the world, Jekyll and Hyde, I suppose, since you wrote it, years, decades ago.
It never stops.
Have you learned anything from those productions that will apply to this revival?
Yeah, I think I try to learn from everything. You know, again, I do something maybe a little odd, which is I give an enormous amount of freedom to producers and directors around the world. So there are no two productions of Jekyll that are the same. There's no cookie cut out version. Everyone is different. And depending on what culture it's in, is the way they treat sex, the way they treat violence. So it's always a surprise to me when I show up. In fact, it just opened last week for the 7th year in a row in South Korea. It's now the most successful American show there. And you know, the way they look at things is very different than the way the Germans do, or the Brazilians do.
You've got 11 openings in Asia, you mentioned, this year.
Yeah.
Why is the rest of the world more hospitable towards your work than Broadway appears to be?
Well, I'm not sure about how hospitable they are. It's a different system. You know, when you do a show here, it costs so much money. It takes so long to develop. But when you get it on, it stays. In Asia, most of the time, you run for 3 months or 6 months. So it's a faster turnover. It's just a different system. So you can have more shows there. But what's happened in the last bunch of years is thank God, they've bought a lot of my shows. I spend a lot of time there. I do a lot of Frank and Friends concerts there. And so I'm known there, and it's turned into be, you know, a wonderful adventure overseas. Europe as well.
Speaking of Frank and Friends, you have a cabaret act or a club act that you do often as a benefit. A jazz act.
Not a cabaret
that you
act.
often do as a benefit. You're going to have a performance on February 4th. That's an Actors Fund benefit?
Yeah.
At Birdland.
At Birdland, the home of jazz. It's one of my heroes. It's therapy for me. I get to be a jazz pianist, which is what I started and still am really at the end of the day. This one's with Titus Burgess and Jane Monheit and Melissa Vanderschiff. And in fact, in February, when Jekyll is in LA, I'll be doing one for the Actors Fund out there as well at the Pantages.
Fantastic. We have to wrap up, but I want to ask you, you have in your queue, Count of Monte Cristo, Cyrano, Tears of Heaven, Excalibur, Havana, all these shows, what unifying principle applies to them?
Melody.
Melody?
Melody.
Melody, not malady.
Melody.
Melody. They all sing.
They sing.
Well, great. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Patrick.
That's it for this edition of our show about shows. Meanwhile, you can follow me at artinfo.com. Look forward to seeing you again.